Welcome to this great opportunity to explore together why rewards and consequences are not trauma informed. So let's take a dive into this together now. Why rewards and consequences are not trauma informed is something that is so important that we take this opportunity, we press pause, we bring our greatest curiosity to, because it's so important for all the children, all the young people in your lives. So some great books that I have drawn upon in my nearly 30 years of working with children, young people, parents and carers to bring me to this place of such clarity around why we would never use rewards and consequences if we are claiming in any way to be trauma informed are some of these. So The Body Keeps the Score, a fantastic book that helps us understand why trauma actually is more a body-based experience than something that's cognitive and rational and sits in the brain. Unconditional Parenting by Alfie Kohn. I came across this when I was on my parenting journey. I wish I'd got it when my son was tiny, but I don't think it was out then. He's 31 now. So I was trying to parent in this way of not using things like praise, rewards, consequences, and thinking that I must be some very strange being, because it certainly wasn't aligned with traditional parenting at all. Then I don't know how I came across, but I did come across Alfie Kohn's book, and it's it's a pretty old book now, but it still makes so much sense. And if you're worried about, well, where's the research behind, all this stuff? Well, in Alfie's book, he lists, and bearing in mind this was, as I say, I think it was maybe 2014, I'm not sure now, reams and reams and reams of studies about why rewards and consequences, even if we leave trauma out of it, they don't ultimately serve any children at all. So really a great read. Then a slightly more complex read, but it explains why children, adults, mammals of all kinds are full of chemistry, internal chemistry. And when we are connecting together, we are influencing and impacting each other's internal chemistry, internal biology. So if we choose to be present in the lives of children, especially if we are saying, I am here in a trauma-informed way, then understanding how using things like rewards to get children to do stuff, it changes the whole biological, physiological, emotional, psychological interaction we're having with children. So that isn't explicit in the book, but if you're interested in interpersonal neurobiology, it's a goodie. Same with polyvagal theory. There's nothing in there about rewards and consequences, but it helps us to understand trauma through a more physical experience rather than a rational cognitive one. So these are kind of the bricks upon which I have come to this place, along with my work of being crystal clear that, number one, no child actually benefits from being manipulated by rewards, consequences, or praise. But children with trauma, it's extra harmful and really unkind. Another wonderful book that helps us explain the need for safe, relational, unconditional connections is one by Maya Slavovitz and Dr. Bruce Perry. It's one of the less known ones, but for me, it's my favorite one. So the one that really looks at it on a parenting level, Alfie Kohn, the others are all related more to trauma. So you might be here because you're curious about the title. Maybe you have just had to follow a system, and now you're a bit confused, particularly because you've done training around being trauma informed. Maybe you're here because you agree completely, but you're a bit out on your own with this. Maybe you're in an organization where a few people are aligned with you, but the majority aren't. So you, as I used to do a lot, have wobbles. So you just need to hear and see, yes, this is why I know I'm on the right track for the children. Just feel all topped up now, and I can keep going. Or you might be here because you feel like, well, I'll listen to this woman, but there's nothing she's going to say or nothing she's going to show me. Okay, that's fine. That's your right and your privilege. Just, yeah, enjoy the curiosity then. That's all I can say. So trauma informed. When we're truly trauma informed, we know that everything for this child, whether they're a child of, 6 months old or they're 18 and they're maybe 6'4" by now, the trauma that they've experienced, their whole system has experienced as a lack and a loss of feeling inside. So not thinking that they're safe, but feeling in this moment that they are safe. So with trauma, that is lost completely. So a wonderful quote by Bessel van der Kolk about being able to feel safe with other people. That's what's hugely needed for every child, even before they're born, but certainly once they're in the world. And then the children who you are supporting and working with, it's still their most primary need, and it's the one that got met least, which is why they are struggling so much now. So of course, as the adults who get to be in their lives, if we can't make that the priority, that we show up in a way that enables them, and it takes a long time for their nervous system to feel safe with us and our nervous system, then really, why are we here? Big question. So trauma informed, what it should mean is that we always carry into all areas of our work this deep understanding and this complete acceptance that however the seemingly big, seemingly insignificant, whatever the trauma was, it's not for us to judge its lasting impact. The impact it's had on the being in front of you is the impact it's had. That's it. It will have been an experience that they can't always intellectually, consciously recall, thank goodness for many children. It's very much buried within them, and it's activated by information that they receive from the environment. So a look on your face, the tone of your voice suddenly changing because, now they've not followed the rule, or they've blah, 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 or whatever it is, that's going to go into their system straight away as danger, 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 danger. So whereas before they were beginning to feel safe with you, now they feel really unsafe because their system, not their thinking brain, but their whole nervous system has picked up a cue of danger. So it's really, really important that we're very clear as well that the way a child of any age is behaving is not something that they can just listen to reason, know that they will earn a whatever if they stop it, or they'll lose a whatever if they don't. it's beyond their control. Now, it isn't always necessarily going to be beyond their control, but using these top-down rationalizing, manipulating ways of trying to get them to do stuff, that really is going to feel like more stress for them, because they're experiencing all the time ongoing signals from the environment, from inside their body, from the people around them. It's what Dr. Stephen Porges calls neuroception of danger, 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 because if you like, their alarm system is highly wired to experience anything as a potential threat because of what's happened to them. So it doesn't relate to this moment with you where you're just doing what you're doing and you are no threat. That doesn't matter. So their state of emergency, panic, need to escape, might need to fight my way out of this, but again, not thinking about it, they get flicked into it, or completely being shut down and seeming to be being very avoidant and disrespectful or whatever it is. These states are being activated all of the time by stuff that's coming into them or coming up from their bodies or coming from you or whoever's around them. And the state of fear and being ready and reactivity, sadly, for children who've experienced early trauma, and again, as I say, it can be very small stuff, it's running in their nervous system all of the time. So they really need us as the adults around them to be very predictable, to be very, very safe, to not move from being kind and compassionate and holding to, well, now I've got to be mean to you and make you feel uncomfortable in some way. Their poor nervous systems are running in a way that they shouldn't have to anyway. They don't need that additional pressure and stress. And the thing about when we really, really know about trauma and we're very deeply accepting of what trauma is, we know that they're not able to access this higher part of their brain very easily. Do they have one? Yes. Is it highly intelligent? Yes, of course. But because of all the signals that are coming in all the time of, be ready, be ready, be ready, they can't get up to it. And of course, things like rewards and consequences, they rely on being able to take in information, remember stuff, and be rational. All the things that when trauma's running in a child's system, it's not possible. So rewards and consequences mean that the child doesn't get to have this continuation of safe connection, being reliable. So it's not going to change because they ran down the corridor and there's not meant to be, we're working on not running, aren't we? And or they pushed in front of the queue in the lunch, or they yelled something in someone's face, or how you show up as this safe, calm, kind person, that's not going to change. It's not going to change. That's what unconditional acceptance is, and it's what they desperately need. Now, the things with reward and even with praise is that they are conditional. Do this thing in this way and you will get my praise, you will get my wow, now you are super, super acceptable to me, which again, no child actually benefits from. Of course, some children can learn the system, follow the system, but if you look at all the studies and the research, it's not very beneficial to them in the long run. But it also doesn't respect the whole child. It just teaches them, do this, get that, we're all happy. Well, it doesn't matter if they're happy, does it? And the same thing, if a child is going to have their safe connection with you taken away in a different way, because these are both ways where it gets taken away, because they've done the thing, then it's just going to increase their feelings of unsafety. How do I get this right? How do I keep this connection with this person? because they're going to get stuff wrong all the time. A, because they're children and children's brains are developing, and B, because of the trauma that's running in them. It's very hard for them to be present in the moment, take a breath, and remember, oh yeah, don't run down the corridor. It's just not going to be a thing. So when we seriously consider what is ongoing, what the legacy is of childhood trauma, we know that the biggest, saddest legacy is this ongoing sense inside the child, again, of any age, of lack of safety. So danger, threat, danger, threat, danger, threat, danger, threat, all the time, which either makes them very activated, very jumpy, very fidgety, very shouty outy, very you know, somebody gets too close, bang, somebody, you know, leans towards them, wah! All that kind of thing is just going on. Or a lot of the time, and a young person, a 12-year-old, completely explained this to me perfectly recently about what happens all the time in the classroom for her, is that, you know, as the tension rises, of course it does, from the teacher, from the other young people around them, that her system shuts down a lot of the time, and she just, not because she's choosing to, but it automatically shuts down. So it becomes very zoned out. So of course she can't hear what's being said, and then she gets into trouble a lot of the time because she can't answer questions. But she's not choosing to just zone out. It looks that way, but it really isn't. It's just part of her safety mechanism kicking in when the noise and the tension and the irritation from the teacher goes up enough notches. Her system, purely to enable her survival, is what it's doing, just shuts down. It no longer feels safe. Boom, game over. So the legacy is this lack of feeling safe on the inside, and seeking, as all of us do all of the time, signals from others that actually there is some safety available to me. And of course, the adults around the child should be the main givers of safety. But when we mess with that mechanism by bringing in, you know, you get more safety and more connection from me, it's not very authentic connection. If you do the good stuff, and if you don't, you lose it, like the Wi-Fi connection becomes wobbly. That doesn't enable this real need to just be able to lean into this safe connection with you, which of course nobody wants, because, you know, we care deeply about the children. So if we think very briefly about the brain is very highly underdeveloped in all children. So this very rational part, which is kind of, you know, at the front here, you may have heard it's called the prefrontal cortex, that develops very slowly in children. And this is the part that rewards and consequences target. So they target this frontal area of the brain, one of which its functions is to control impulse. Now, that isn't going to fully form until they are nearly 33, 0. So rewards, consequences, praise, they rely on a child being able to access a bit of reflection, rationality, logic in this moment. Oh, running down the corridor, don't run down the corridor, don't run down the corridor, don't run down the corridor. And for many children, this is incredibly hard. You know, they're excited about something, or they think they're late, or this rational part of the brain, mostly offline anyway for children, and it takes a lot of energy to bring it back in and conform in this way anyway. But with trauma, we're in a whole different level of it being offline. So most of the time, because with trauma, the lower parts of the brain, they're very survival focused. That's where a child is not choosing to spend time, it's just automatically selected. So whatever upper parts, so still they're very underdeveloped, but they're offline even more than for other children. And in reality, the whole of a child's brain is impacted by the ongoing state of be ready, emergency, the whole time. So different parts of their brain are much more sensitive, they don't function as well. And it's not, I can't emphasize enough, it's not they're not highly intelligent, it's just adaptive stuff that's happened in the brain because their early part of life, when their brain was on this ginormous early part of development, have been scared. They've been scared over and over and over and over and over again. So let's get curious. Why do we offer rewards? Why are we offering these to any child at all, but particularly children with trauma? For me, it hurts my heart to even think about it. Well, rewards, well, they're a way of, they're just an incentive. And it means that they learn, to follow the rules and to, not upset others and and all that kind of thing. So that can be one of the reasons why we use them. It gives them a clear piece of paper or a thing or an experience that rubber stamps you followed this and you got this at the end. So now we're all really pleased with you and you get the goodies and all the rest of it. They get an experience, we think this as adults, of feeling, oh, I feel so good now because all the adults are really happy with me. Well, maybe they do, but what an awful thing to do to children that they would have to go through life trying to work out, oh, this is the thing that the adults want me to do, and this is the stuff they don't want me to do. When you think of it like that, it's pretty awful, isn't it? And I work with so many adults I coach who are horribly stuck in this system, and it has a really bad impact on their adult lives. Doesn't mean they're not functioning and they don't have jobs and all the rest of it, but deep down it means that they never ever ever feel like they're good enough because it's all about getting it right, pleasing other people. So rewards, it's giving them clear evidence. This is what you get when you do this in a certain way. So we can all just relax now because we're clear about the system. And of course, they get, a release of feel-good chemicals. Some do, some don't. I mean, if it's food related, maybe they do. But then now you're creating this lovely, unhealthy connection between reward, food. It's generally going to be of the sugary variety. I do stuff, I please other people, I get sugar, and I temporarily feel good. Again, they may or may not feel good. It's what we think that they do. So it motivates them to keep going, does it? Well, when you start looking at the studies and the research, actually it doesn't. And particularly Alfie Kohn, I mean, he has had direct experience of doing this work, but he's also studied and studied and studied the research at a level I don't think anybody else has, and found just so much evidence of what we don't want to accept, which is when we motivate children, read all these books and you get this, later on, they hate reading. And as soon as they can drop reading, they're going to drop reading. And as soon as they can drop anything, they're pretty much going to drop it. So as I say, for your average situation, it's not great, and it doesn't really work. And another thing is, well, we have to get children ready for real life, because in real life, if you don't follow the rules and all the rest of it, you're not going to get paid, or you're not going to. Well, yes, we absolutely do need to prepare children for real life, but we do them a disservice if we make it all about keep your eye on the prize and just learn to shove everything down to keep your job or whatever it is. That's a kind of very blunt instrument to get children to just comply, follow rules, don't upset anyone. And the reality is, in adult life, honestly and truly, most of us, most of the time, we do not comply. We do not. We do all kinds of bits and bobs on the side. And, I mean, some people drive everywhere completely within the speed limit, but most of us do not. So, we're preparing them for a life that actually isn't true. It's better to focus on lots of emotional connection, lots of body-based, calming, so that when anything goes wrong in life, actually what they can do is get really, really calm and cope with the situation before them. You know, if I got caught speeding on the motorway, which I am not inviting, universe, then the first thing I would do is I would start regulating myself like crazy, so that when the police officer came to speak to me, I would be very, very calm. I would just accept what I had done. Yeah. And, you know, that would be it. Which would be much better for me. And it may, who knows, it may even accidentally sway the police officer. But it's not about avoiding and complying. It's about, in the situation, feeling safe enough to be calm and to not be completely knocked sideways by it. You don't get that from using rewards and consequences. And of course, children with trauma, they really, really, really need this massively, because life in general, you know, just a door banging knocks them sideways. So this is vital. And then consequences. So, you know, oh, it's going to stop them doing stuff. It's, you know, it's going to give them a bit of a shaming experience, so they won't want to go through that again. It's going to make them feel bad, and, you know, they did do something wrong, so they need to feel take responsibility and feel bad. It gives them a clear, you know, the loss of the break time, or the loss of going to the prom or the school trip or whatever. Now they've got a solid line of, you know, had to work for this, didn't work for this, lost the thing at the end. Oh, why would we do that to children? And so, yeah, they go through some physical stuff, some emotional stuff that really is horrible for them. And these are children already who are struggling every moment of their life. Why we would increase their discomfort, their shame, their isolation, their disconnection? Why would we? You know, the belief that it's going to motivate them in some way. Well, again, you know, when you actually look at the research, and even if you just have worked with children for a long time and or raised any, what you know is that children then often just learn ways to avoid you, avoid getting caught, denying things. Children, especially with trauma, but all children actually, when you use rewards and consequences, they're much less likely to come to you when they're struggling with anything at all, because they're just not sure. They're not sure what's going to happen. They're not sure if you're going to shame them or take something off them. So they're not going to come and tell you. If somebody was being weird with them online, or someone's been touching them in the playground, or whatever it is, they are not going to come to you. And that makes them very, very, very unsafe, especially children with trauma. So let's just hear from Alfie Kohn. He's written many books on this. He's written books on the use of rewards and consequences and praise in school as well. And he's very good at asking us questions. So, you know, some people say, but they work. You know, we work with this child and they did this and they earned this thing, so therefore they work. Well, maybe they do work, but at what cost to the child? And what are you effectively getting them to do? Or they sat in their chair for a whole thing? Well, okay, maybe they did, but the need and the fear and the stress in them driving them to move was still there. It's just somehow they managed to shove all of that down while it's still buzzing around inside of them and make it through 45 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it was. But did it help the child? Did it make them feel safer? Did it make them feel calmer? Did it make them feel connected, cared about? No. So the cost is huge. And, you know, when you talk to parents and carers, so, I mean, I've been a foster carer and I've worked with many foster carers, kinship carers, adoptive parents, and parents who are parenting children post-trauma. And they say, yeah, you know, they may have done that in school. Guess what happened when they got home? Or guess what happened the moment I picked them up in the car? You know, it's like a bottle of fizz being shaken all day long, and they've managed somehow to keep the lid on it. The minute they see their safe person, the whole damn lot comes off. So they're having a miserable, miserable time at home where they should be able to experience some safety and some downtime. So yeah, check out Alfie Kohn. His stuff is great. There's some good videos on YouTube. So let us just get curious. Let's just pause. Let's just take a couple of deep breaths and be extra curious about why is there such this heavy reliance on get these children to just settle down, follow the system, and don't look left nor right. Now, of course, that makes life easier for the adults, but you've put children into a system and their systems, their nervous systems, are in a state of terror and fear and anxiety all of the time. So they're going to keep either trying desperately to not get into trouble, or they're going to immediately get into trouble to release the anxiety, or who knows what. But let's just get curious about, so why have we become a world now where we just lean on this system? Why do we? So you don't have to have the answer, but it's good to get curious. I mean, this is where my journey began with all of this, with my child, thinking, I don't really want to be mean to my child. I really, really love him. And, you know, the stuff that I know to do, I'm definitely not going to do. But now I don't know what else to do. So I started looking at things like Super Nanny, and he hated all of it. And I hated it because it disconnected us. So then I was left in a bit high and dry. But I just, rewards and consequences, they separated us. We both felt the disconnection. So it got me curious about, is there a way of raising a child, keeping the connection, being respectful, being loving, and being kind, and still get an amazing human being? Well, yes, there is, I can tell you, because he's 31 now. And this is exactly what I'm doing with my granddaughter too, actually at a higher standard, because I know more now. So where did this all even come from? Well, so much of what is still being done to children actually came from, particularly from the work of B.F. Skinner, Watson as well. He had a hand in this. And it focused very much on experiments on rats in boxes and pigeons in boxes. So let's just press pause a moment and just consider that what we're actually doing to children very much draws on what Skinner observed from rats in boxes. So he found out that, you know, by electric shocking them and by giving them a way of getting a food pellet, that they could learn to avoid the pain and get the pleasure of the food pellet. Ha, there we go. So this is exactly what rewards, consequences, and praise, you know, rely on. They rely on an avoidance of, this feels horrible and I'm disconnected, and using, oh, I feel safer now because I have connection. I'm being bathed in the spotlight of these people are pleased with me momentarily. So exactly the same, isn't it? It's crazy when you think of it like that. So we're using pleasure or pain. You will get this pleasurable thing, which they may or may not care about, or you will experience emotional and or physical pain. So what I'm asking is, how respectful is this to any child, but particularly children who've had this early start in life? They've had to deal with things that no child should have had to deal with, even if it was tiny. I cannot emphasize that enough. We don't need to only apply this to children who we know had a terrible start in life. We shouldn't be doing this to any children. So is it respectful to be in control of whether they experience pleasure or pain? Is it okay to be in control of whether they feel safe and they can relax because they've got the smiley face today, or the thing in the jar, or the point on the whatever? Oh, fine, I've got that on the board. Or they've avoided going on the whatever list. Should we really? What on earth is that all about? You know, should we be messing with compassion? Oh, you can get compassionate connection and my good regard if you follow the rules and you do what I want you to, or what the system wants you to do. Is using this, is it really connecting with what they are feeling, connecting them to how they're feeling physically, you know, that they got when the door banged, they went, they're never going to know that if all we do is punish the behavior from the door banging them, then jumping off their chair and, you know, knocking things over as they run out of the classroom, or the because a motorbike started up down the road, or whatever it is. We don't know half the time what's made them do their behavior. But if we focus on just stopping the behavior, rewarding, you know, when they don't do it, control it, we never get to what the hell is going on for this poor child, which means they will never be able to flinch, know that that's because they're scared, take a breath or two. As adults, and you know, as children this will be very hard, but this is where we begin supporting them to do this with our help. They're never going to get that bit of it, so it's never going to address what they really need. It's definitely not going to build a relational connection that they can trust, because it's conditional. It's conditional on them being good and following the whatever it is. Is it fair? Is it fair to do this to children anyway? Because they are children, highly underdeveloped brains, doing their damn best every day. But you know what? It's complicated being a child, because you're full of impulses and you're not meant to sit still. You're meant to move most of the time. So is it fair for any child? Is it something we like? Do we like, you know, I had a manager years ago who would come sometimes at the end of the day and say, oh, how's your day been? And, you know, you might say a bit about it. And they'd always say, oh, well done. Ugh. There was no authenticity to it. They didn't actually want to know how I felt about any of the stuff I'd relayed. They just were literally patting me on the head. It used to make me feel sick. So, you know, most people I know as well, adults, if you praise them in any way, so you say, whoa, sounds like something incredible that you were able to do for your child, they're not comfortable with it, because praise has been such a negative loaded experience for them, that, you know, think of yourself. Do you enjoy being rewarded for stuff? You might like the actual reward, but you know, most of us don't. It's very inauthentic, it's very patronizing. That's a good word. Is it in any way meeting the child's ongoing state of imbalance and dysregulation in their nervous system that's ongoing by being given a reward? Or no, it's not, because it's all external to the child. So the fear and the anxiety and the stress and the shutdown and the loneliness and all that, it's still happening inside of them. That has not gone away. We are doing nothing to address it. So rules and consequences and praise, are they really the best that we can do at this time of having ginormous amounts of research, science? Not really sure. Are we still doing rats in boxes? So we need to also pay huge attention. This is like the driver behind so much of our reactivity as adults, our beliefs and our words. So, you know, the way that we are talking about children and thinking about children makes it much easier to rely on things like rewards and consequences. Because if we are perceiving their dysregulation, their fear, their lack of safety as behavior that's manipulative, or we're talking about them as having challenging behaviors, or being attention seeking, or controlling, oh, you know, they get in there and the first thing they do is they take control. Well, yes, they do, because they're terrified. But if we're seeing that as a negative thing rather than a, wow, that poor child, the only way they can feel safe is if they get into a situation and they lock everything down, that's awful. That's such a burden for them. It means they can never relax and enjoy anything. That they've got some preconceived plan, that, you know, they know what they're doing, they do it on purpose. Well, they might do it on purpose, but they do it on purpose because it's all they know how to do in order to get some connection with an adult. So yeah, they might be. But if we start really, really, really sorting ourselves out, grounding ourselves a lot more, it's much easier to connect with our hearts and to see this child, this 6'4", 16-year-old, this squirming 6-year-old, as completely in a state of overwhelm. So in a state of overwhelm, it feels horrendous, very, very scared. Even though you know, if you were to say to them, "Oh, are you feeling scared?" They might say, "I don't feel scared." But that's what you're seeing in front of you, and you're actually feeling it through your body if you can tune into their bodies. And they're just stuck in this ongoing state of danger, 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 danger. Again, doesn't relate to the context they're in now, and it doesn't relate to anything you've done, unless you've done a very frowny face or really changed your tone of voice, and then it flipping does. But it's ongoing for these poor children. So they really, really need us to focus on, how do I hold this child to safety? How do I offer them in this moment safe connection? Because I know they can't help this, and they definitely do not want to go through life like this. And, you know, the work of Dr. Stephen Porges, it really helps us understand how it's what's happening here, not here, that's having a huge impact on how they experience the world, but also how they show up in the world. And, you know, we know from again, the work of Stephen Porges, Bessel van der Kolk, many, 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 many others, that trauma is not a rational, logical experience. It's stored in the autonomic nervous system, which actually is a body-based system in the nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system receiving information all the time, either flicking a child into emergency, move, 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 escape, you know, defend, protect, or very, very shut down, be very, very still. The danger might pass. Again, this is not intellectually selected, it just happens. Or everything feels safe, everything feels safe, I can relax and enjoy. Again, polyvagal theory, work of Stephen Porges. But this is all automatically selected. So if their physical state is one of then that impacts their whole lens for viewing everything that's happening to them, around them, and towards them. Everything. So it's not about thinking. None of this is about thinking. Rewards and consequences, they sit very much on being able to use this, the prefrontal cortex, to, you know, control your impulse to run down the corridor or yell at your teacher or whatever it is. Not that we're saying anybody should be yelled at, of course not, but it's a sign that they're very overwhelmed and they need some help. Rewards and consequences, they're all about this intellectual, let's stop and think, let's not do this, let's be more logical. Well, trauma doesn't care about any of that. It doesn't live in that world at all. It's not possible. So when we take a very rational, logical system, we are constantly setting them up to struggle, to get stuff wrong, and to fail. And as if their lives hadn't been difficult enough. How we could and should be doing that, I have no words for that. You know, I've worked with adoptive parents and foster carers and kinship carers who have shared with professionals what they know of what their children have experienced. And they've been told, well, okay, but you know, that was when they were 3 weeks old. We can't keep using that as an excuse. And there's this kind of expectation that there's an expiration on trauma. Well, there sure as hell is not. So be wary of that. So if we're really, really, really living as trauma-informed beings, and that's what I would invite, it's not a system, it's a whole upgrade of how we perceive the behavior actually of everyone, but particularly of children and young people, if we've chosen to work with them. It's this whole acceptance and respect for the fact that most of the time, if not all of the time, their inner system, their autonomic nervous system, is in a state of imbalance. So rarely, if at all, do they get moments where they've got the right mix of activated energy and the right mix of calming energy, so that they can follow instructions, they can remember things, they can be in the moment, they can, all that stuff. That's going to take a lot of work from you to enable that for them, but not by using rewards and consequences. And of course, as with every single child on the planet, in this precise moment, this is the best that they can do. They don't need it graded or judged or disapproved of because of whatever's going on inside of them. That's the best they can do. Same for you, same for me. You know, some moments we are shinier than others, but in that moment, because of whatever was going on inside my autonomic nervous system, I didn't behave very well, but actually that was the best I could pull out of the bag. Well, of course, that's true for children. Because of trauma, one of the areas of the brain that gets really impacted is something called the hippocampus. There's two of them, the hippocampi. You might have heard of them. They play a big role in memory and short-term memory particularly. So when you have experienced trauma, and especially, you know, if it's ongoing, their capacity to access remembering, oh, I need to do this and not do that, or this is when I do this and I don't do, it truly has been impacted. So again, that's not a made up thing. And, you know, knowing that they're in this ongoing state of overwhelm, again, I would say some children, this is all of the time. Many children, it's much of the time, because they have not gone through what children should go through, especially when they're tiny, of, I have an emotional need, I have a physical need, some calm, safe, soothing adult comes, brings their calmness, their safety, not perfectly every time, but most of the time. And they care about how I feel. Oh, you're feeling really sad at the moment. This is so hard. They've had this again and again and again, you know, the majority of the time. No, these children have not. They haven't experienced that safe co-regulation. So if you offer it, it's going to take time for them to trust that they can, you know, for their nervous system to trust that this is okay to rely on it. And then if you muddy the waters by using rules and consequences, then you've just ruined the whole thing. So things like remembering, following instructions, all that kind of stuff, nothing to do with their intelligence, just to do with the fact that they're either in a state of internal or internal shutdown a lot of the time, and they just can't remember, and they certainly can't remember in the moment. Or their terror and fear of being in trouble means that they follow instructions, they follow rules, things have to be a certain way, because that is the only way that they are managing to create some tiny level of safety in their lives. So, you know, then they're often seen as being difficult, controlling, or a whole load of other labels that come along with it. You know, knowing that their overwhelm means that they're in this ongoing state of jittery fear and activation, which is horrible, it's so exhausting, and that they're just scanning all the time. I mean, every child and every adult is scanning, we just don't know we are, but for these children it's at a very high level, seeking any sign of safety, but they may not even know what that is. They may not be able to receive it when it's on offer. Again, it's going to take repetition of calm, kind adults showing up again and again and again, and not scaring them, basically, and not making them feel bad. They've got all these triggers. They don't know their triggers. Nobody knows all their triggers. We're never going to know their triggers, but they're being activated again and again and again. It could just be by the smell of, you know, the spray that an adult's got on them, the body spray. It could be the color of something on display. It could be the shape of something. There's just millions of them, and no one's going to know them. But they're trying to navigate life with all sorts of things kicking off all the time. And of course, the one thing, however they're showing that they want connection and they need connection, it could be very, very messy. And that's when it's really hard as the adults to keep showing up full of kindness, calmness, and compassion, and trusting and believing this is the only thing they need. They don't need any of this other stuff. When, you know, sometimes it seems to get that moment of connection and other times it doesn't. but they do want it. They are seeking it. They're desperate to get on with you. So it really does come down to this unconditional acceptance. So, of course, we are going to talk about when they're calmer and they're safer, we're going to talk about, what happened. They pushed somebody in the playground, they've screamed and yelled and told somebody to F off. Once they're feeling much safer, we're going to care about how that felt for them, because they've been through a massive experience when something like that's happened, and we're going to be gently curious about, oh yeah, and I was wondering how that felt for Mr. Angel as well. And they might go, oh, I don't care, but at least we've offered that, Mr. Angel would have felt something, we can suggest, or maybe he got a bit of a shock and felt a bit scared too. I wonder how can we support you next time so you don't have to go through this whole horrible loop again, and Mr. Angel doesn't, and everyone else. What do you need? What can we do to support you? That's what we need to be looking at. They know what they've done. They don't not know what they've done, unless for some children with a lot of trauma, actually they don't. It's all happened so fast that they don't have any recollection of it. So, it's going through this again, lots of calmness, kindness, and compassion. The thing that they do know is that they shouldn't have done it. That's the bit they do know, or that they didn't do the thing that they've been asked to do. They know that. They don't need us to bang on about that. They need us to compassionately walk through and work with them to build, with our help, always co-regulation, that moment of. And actually, if we were doing that with them before they went in the classroom, all the children in the classroom, things like this would be happening a lot less anyway. So some key takeaways for you to just go ponder on. That what's the expression, Rome was not built in a day. I've had to work for years and years and years to come to this, as I say, this place of clarity and knowing, because I've seen it in action so many times, and so many parents I work with, when they start parenting this way, they see completely different children. It's incredible. So we're clear that it's the child's experience. It's not for us to decide, well, I don't think anything's happened to this child, so I don't know why they're behaving like that. You don't know. You weren't there at their conception, you weren't with them in the womb, and you weren't with them when they were born. So you don't know. And so we don't get to have an opinion on this. And again, this is really important, because I promise you, if I lined up all the people who are caring for and raising children with lots of trauma, who are told we cannot keep using this as an excuse, you'd probably cry if you saw them. And that's just within my career. So we are not inside these children. We don't know what's happening. We think we know because we are the grown-ups, but you don't. You don't know what's going on inside of anybody. You don't know what's going inside of your dog, never mind a child. I mean, we can guess with dogs. It's a bit more simple, but within a child, you definitely don't know. So minimizing, dismissing, thinking we know better, that's not very kind and respectful. And what we do get to do is just really focus on honoring this child. They are here, they are doing their best. How can I be so compassionate and so supportive of this child that they feel held without any silly carrot that I'm dangling, or any mean thing that I'm going to then later do for them? So if we aren't doing these things, we cannot claim to be trauma informed. We really can't, because it's not. It's just not, whichever way you shake it up. So trauma informed embraces this whole clear knowing and acceptance of things like polyvagal theory, particularly, where we know the whole struggle for a child is this ongoing state of chronic lack of inside safety. So we work with the child's inside regulation, inside, which is, everything that we do, certainly at Innovating Minds, is all based on this, because we know that they're doing their best. They don't want to be like this. And we are not going to try and use something external to address what is internal dysregulation, particularly physically and biologically. So remember, the thinking part really doesn't have anything to do with this. So, as I said, Innovating Minds, the programs that we have created, this is woven through all of it because of the work that we've all done, everything we've looked at, all the research. We take very, very body-based, very compassionate, very trauma sensitive. All our programs rest upon this. So these are the ones at the moment that we have available. And we've got some other great ones coming online soon as well, where you'll be able to use these lovely trauma sensitive, very resource focused programs with not only the children and the young people, but also the adults in their lives. So a complete joy to be with you, and you probably need to go and have a bit of a rest after that. So thank you so much for taking the time out to press pause, as I said at the beginning, and really seriously consider something that I know is just like falling off a log in daily life. And, you know, early years settings, schools, colleges, use systems like this. It's not that it isn't being used, and many, many, many parents, many homes around the world use it, but that doesn't make it right. It just means it's what's being used. So get curious, start trying this stuff out. And if you're somebody who's already been using it, then hopefully that's given you a good boost. But remember, yeah, literally this has taken me many, many years to get very, very clear, reading the same research, the same science over and over again, but then using it in my daily life and supporting parents and carers to use it with their children as well. Schools that I've trained, or, you know, early years settings, it works. It's just not as systematic as do this, don't do that, you know, get this, don't get that, because that isn't respectful to our children. And in the long run, we really care. Well, not in the long run, the short run as well, or the short term as well. We really care about the children, and our focus is on honoring them, respecting them, showing them as the highest level of compassion. Thanks so much for being part of this webinar.